So this is the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. It's Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. I'm looking at, please put up slide number 1, please. I'm looking at the investor presentation from Q1 2023. Page 4, I circled here, accelerating guidance. Expect to achieve 4 exahash by September 30th, 2023. Previously expected by year-end 2023. Okay, back to me for a moment. So, as we already know, we actually beat that guidance by like about a month or so, right? We got to 4 exahash pretty much at the very end of August. Okay, next slide, please. So this is page 9 from the Q1 2023 investor presentation. I want to draw your attention to the arrow right at the top there. 165 megawatt plant power output capacity. Then take a look at what I circled right underneath there. 95 megawatt current mining load, moving to 130 megawatts by September 30th, 2023. Okay, back to me for a moment. So we were guiding towards 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity by September 30th, 2023 on page, I believe it was 4 of this presentation. On page 9, we sort of connect the dots, or at least our friends in management connect the dots between 4 exahash, essentially meaning 130 megawatts of current mining load, right? Because you figure, well, hey, if you're guiding the 4 exahash, and at that point, you're going to have 130 megawatts of utilization, it stands to reason that 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity at Stronghold Digital Mining, based on the equipment we've got, means using 130 megawatts to power the data centers, right? To make the Bitcoin mining happen. So between both Scrubgrass and Panther Creek, right, 165 megawatt plant power output capacity. So between 130 megawatts, which is what the data centers collectively would be using to mine Bitcoin, it would seem as if, though, collectively, Scrubgrass and Panther Creek can produce 165 megawatts of electricity. Now, we have, if I understand correctly, about 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center equipment. That includes transformers, I guess switchgear, equipment, strong boxes, and I'm paraphrasing minute marker 27, more or less, from the Q1 2023 investor presentation. And if I'm not mistaken, this is what Greg mentioned, right? Our chief executive officer. We've already got all of this equipment, okay? So if it's 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center equipment, help me, and this is, I really mean this, I want you to kind of chime in the comments here. Help me remember or understand why we're not choosing to basically install this data center equipment at one or both of our power plants. Maybe all 25 megawatts wouldn't necessarily fit at Panther Creek. Fair enough. Would even just 5 megawatts fit at Panther Creek? Alternatively, would a certain percentage, or if not all, of the 25 megawatt data center equipment fit at Scrubgrass? See, something's not quite making sense to me, and I'm not suggesting that there's any error, like insofar as this investor presentation. I'm just forgetting or not quite recalling at the moment what the impediment would be to having this data center equipment at our own facilities. Now, it does seem as if though the trajectory is to develop a so-called third site, not to be confused with a third plant, which would imply a third power plant. I just mean like a third site data center, basically. So if that's true, then help me understand, why is it that we're not just putting this equipment like at our own facilities? Because, we would still have about 10 megawatts collectively, right, left over of the 165 megawatt plant power output capacity. We still have about 10 megawatts left over to potentially just continue selling to the grid or to be interconnected with the grid in other ways. Now, at the 30-minute mark during the Q1 2023 investor presentation, I believe Greg also mentioned, hey, we want to continue to be a net power supplier to the grid. So I want to address that, right? So that question came up in the context of, hey, does it make sense to not only import electricity when, grid prices are, like in the garbage, so to speak, right? Really, really low prices. Hey, does it make sense to use that cheaper electricity to power the data centers that we've already got? But hey, does it make sense to go above and beyond what we've got in terms of like our ability, so to speak, to power those data centers directly from our power plants, and to instead just import power from the grid? And for a variety of reasons that are, I think, very clearly articulated at roughly the 30-minute mark of the Q1 2023 investor presentation, I think it's pretty clear that we, meaning Stronghold Digital Mining, really want to remain as net suppliers of electricity to the grid. So I still don't see how that sort of desire would be impacted if we had this roughly 25 megawatts of end-to-end data center equipment at our facilities. We'd still be able to be a net, supplier of electricity to the grid, right? Because, I think the way that works out, it's like, hey, you don't want to import more electricity than what you're actually producing and sending into the grid. I mean, do we need 35 megawatts of, power plant capacity being sent to a grid where, prices can be like, $8 a megawatt hour? I don't, you know what I mean? So there's got to be a reason why we're not sort of more focused on finding a home for this data center equipment at either Scrubgrass or Panther Creek, or a combination of both. We've got the transformers, the switchgear, the strong boxes. So that's the question that I have today. I don't really have an answer, and I've been digging through my notes. I've been reviewing a lot of stuff, and I can't seem to find anything, at least not yet, that I think very definitively explains why we're simply not putting this equipment like on site. Like the math just doesn't make sense to me. So is there maybe an outside possibility that we're going to get a surprise where we find out, hey, the third site's going to actually be like ourselves? We're going to, choose to install this equipment at, again, Scrubgrass and or Panther Creek, or a little bit at each. Greg also mentioned during that Q1 2023 investor presentation, and I'm paraphrasing, that we have had a lot of success, right, with these win-win hosting plus arrangements. And so that the expectation is that there's going to be a very, very low capex to getting this extra Bitcoin mining capacity up online. So that implies to me that, yeah, we're definitely going to try to strike some deals to host in a win-win manner, right, Bitcoin mining equipment to fill this data center infrastructure that we've got, right? The 25 megawatts, that we're talking about. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised in some ways if we were to go the route of saying, hey, we're just gonna set this equipment up at some other facility. I did a little bit of homework, and it seems like it's not entirely. It could be a little bit more complicated than meets the eye to just maybe pull up at another waste coal reclamation facility and say, hey, you guys might have 110 megawatts of nameplate capacity. We'd like to co-locate, right, this 25 megawatt data center, can you keep sending electricity to this data center 24/7? There's, I don't know, I mean, it's beyond the scope of today's broadcast, but there are reasons why that might not actually be the most economic solution. To me, it seems like what seems to make sense is to say, hey, we've got enough Bitcoin mining equipment to practically consume almost 100% of the electricity that we produce ourselves, right? We have 165 megawatts of plant power output capacity. Would it not make sense to have as much data center equipment as possible so that if we make the switch from saying, hey, we were selling to the grid, now it makes more economic sense to switch our electricity from going to the grid to going to our data centers, to have all that data center equipment like right in-house. I think it would further our vertical integration in many ways. I mean, we have control over the site. We kind of understand what's going on. We've got really awesome people who are really familiar with strong boxes and how they work and what to do with them. So there's a little bit of a mystery here, and I'm very open to your thoughts. I'm not just fishing for comments for the sake of, hey man, leave a comment. I don't care about that. I am genuinely interested in whether or not you might have any insight as to what's going on, right? 165 megawatts, that's what we can produce in the way of electricity. Why not have 155 megawatts worth of Bitcoin data center equipment at our facilities in total? I don't know. Okay. Let's be positive. Let's be great. Leave a comment if you have any insight as to what's going on, and we will see each other again tomorrow.